Today we're going to do absolute value inequalities. It's a little different. So our first step, just like with the equations, we need to isolate the absolute value expression. That just means get the absolute value part by itself. Thank you so much. Get the absolute value by itself. So there's two situations. We've got greater than or equal to. So the greater than, and then we have the less than part. And they behave the same. So whether it's equal to or not, we solve them the same. And then there's another situation where it's the greater than part. So we kind of break it up into two different situations. So if the absolute value is less than, then it's an and statement. Less than and. And when you do this situation, what you're looking for is you're looking for where the two graphs overlap. It's going to be a graph like that. It could be solid dots. It doesn't really matter. So you're looking for where the graphs overlap. An and statement overlaps less than and. You're looking for where the two graphs overlap. I'm going to draw it again with open circles. So overlapping and means overlapping. That's what the graph looks like. When you go to graph, and for these, graphing is kind of how you check yourself. When you go to graph, if it doesn't look like that, if your graph doesn't overlap like that, then there's no solution. It didn't work. And a symbol for no solution is this one. For no solution. So that's the way that I remember it, is less than and. Less than and. That's how I remember that less than is an and statement, and an and statement has to go together where they overlap. The other situation is when you have the greater than symbol. So greater is an or statement. Greater or greater or statement. In this one, you get graphs like this. It's an or statement. This or this. It's two pieces. This or this. Two pieces. I'm going to write it again. This or this. Two pieces. If you go to graph, and what you notice is that everything is covered. So that means that you got a point, you got another point, and instead of going away from each other, what they do is they go towards each other. That's means everything is covered. And in that situation, here's a new symbol. It's two lines, and then you turn it into an R. You connect the first one to the second one. It's an R. That means all real numbers. It's the same thing as saying from negative infinity to infinity. That means everywhere, basically. That means everything's covered. It's the same thing as saying also infinitely many solutions. Those are all the same thing. Means everything could work. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to, Aiden, both of y'all, where are your notes? Are y'all taking notes with me?
Are you talking about the notes from last class?
Like everybody else has notes out. Everybody, y'all are just sitting there chilling out. Okay, well, let's say something. If they're not pointless, you combine them, put them together. All right, anybody else not have notes? If you don't have notes or you lost them from last class, don't just sit there. Say something, get the notes. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the problems so far and we're going to mark them as and or. When I look at these two, I'm looking at just the symbol. And so I'm looking at this symbol. It's greater or. So I'm going to mark it. This is an or statement. And my graph for an or statement needs to look like that. If it doesn't, there's an issue. For B, that one is a less than and statement. And an and statement means that I need to have a graph and it needs to look like that. It needs to be an and graph. If it's not, then there's an issue. Let's go on to the next one. For the next one, let's mark these two. That's greater or. And the or needs to look like that when I go to graph it. And D, less than and. And an and graph needs to look like this. Take a moment, look at your homework. There are 4 problems on the homework. Go mark them. Mark them as and or, and then go give yourself a hint next to the graph so you can check yourself. And or. It sucks to have a running nose. Okay, did everybody mark their homework with and or? Mark your homework with and or. Are we ready to solve? For these, we just, once the absolute value is isolated, we can split it. So an or statement, we're going to split into and one side's going to look exactly the same way that it looks without absolute value bars. So C is greater than or equal to 8. The other one, this is a little bit different. You got to flip. You got to switch. So I'm going to write that down. Switch. So this time when you go out the other side, you have C, and then we're going to flip the sign or switch the sign, and we're going to switch the sign. So switch them both. So switch them both. We're going to go graph this. So as I go to graph it, I have -8 and I have 8. And these are also have something underneath the inequality. So when I make my circles, I need to shade them in. I don't care where you put them. I need -8 and 8. And I'm going to shade them in because there's stuff underneath. So go put the two numbers underneath in order. Now I'm going to shade. So for these, it says when I look at the -8 one, it says C is less than -8. So less than -8 goes that way. The other one says C is greater than +8. So it's going to go that way. Is it an OR graph? Yes. So this works. It made an OR graph. So my solution set, it's an OR. It's going to be an OR statement. And I'm going to put it in a set because it's going to be a set. My variable for this one is C. So I'm going to say it's C such that, and usually you put the one with the smaller number first. So I'm kind of going in order. This part, the -8 part, I'm going to write first, and then I'm going to do the +8 part second. Usually you write the smaller one first. So C is less than or equal to -8, or C is greater than or equal to +8. Remember that at the beginning, this is just identifying the variable we're using, and this just says such that. So in the curly brackets mean the set of C such that C is less than or equal to -8, or C is greater than or equal to +8. To write this as an interval, I know that to the left is where -infinity is. To the right is where +infinity is. So I'm going to write these down exactly the way I see them. So I go from -infinity to -8. Around infinity is always a parenthesis. For the -8, it's a solid circle, so we need a bracket. Or 8 to infinity, bracket, always parentheses. Greater or statement. So the next thing that I would like to do is for us to skip and do C now. C is also an OR statement. So let's go ahead and do C because it's going to work out similar. So we're going to, it's isolated, so we can split it. And I'm going to talk less for this one because I'm hoping you guys can kind of do a little bit yourself. Remember, you need to switch. Switch the sign and switch the value. Now I'm going to go solve these. These are a simple one-step equation. We're multiplying by -4. So we need to divide by -4. But y'all might not remember, what do you have to do when you have an inequality and you divide or multiply by a negative number? Switch the sign. So for both of these, the sign is going to switch. So I get K divide by -4. So I get -4. You have to flip the sign. Same thing happens for my second one. I'm going to divide by -4, which means I have to flip the sign. Negative times a negative will be a positive. Oh, why did I have a -16? I don't know. Oh, I know why I had -16, because you have to. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I get +4. So I have two values. I have 4 and -4. I'm going to go put those on my graph. For these, they're going to be an open circle because there's nothing underneath the inequality symbol. So I'm going to have -4 and 4. I'm going to put the -1 on the left. Now I'm going to go through and read the symbols. So for the -1, K is less than -4. K is less than -4. So I'm going to go this way, less than. The other one says K is greater than 4. So it's going to look like that. Did I create an OR graph? The rest of you, did I create an OR graph? Why? Or just means you go like this or this. Yes, I did. So I have an OR graph, which means, okay, I am good. That graph matches with what I'm supposed to get. I can create a solution set. My solution set for this one, my variable is K. So it's K such that, and I'm going to write the smaller one first, K is less than -4, or K is greater than +4. My solution set, K's such that K is less than -4, or K is greater than 4. For the interval, I know that to the left, I'm pointing to -infinity. To the right, I am pointing to infinity. So when I write my solutions or my interval, -infinity to -4, both of them get parentheses, or 4 to infinity. Yes. Here. The one above it got brackets because they were solid circles. So if they're open circles, think about like if you split a circle, they will be parentheses. And another way to remember that when you have a line underneath, then these need to be flat lines at the bottom. Any other questions on the OR graphs, the OR problems, greater OR? Are we good so far with the inequalities? It's a lot to remember, I know, but the more problems we do, the better we will get. Brooklyn, will you turn off the right light? I believe the right light. Yeah. Today, for a brain break, we're going to find out how footballs are made. But before we do that, I have a question. How long do you think, and if you know, don't say anything, but how long do you think that it takes to make a football? So we're talking about like a mass-produced Wilson football. Some of y'all may have no idea, but we're talking about in a factory, a mass-produced football. How long do you think? 10 what? Okay.
3 hours maybe.
So we have answers varying from minutes to hours. I mean, if you've never held a football, you might not have any idea. Just think about a football. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, a couple hours. Okay, I've never ever thought about it before, but I think that my guess is we're definitely in the same range as y'all. Like, I mean, I've never really thought about how long it takes to make a factory pair of blue jeans, but I mean, it's certainly faster than when I sew at home, right? So you think that it doesn't take too long. And I had never actually really thought about it, but today is the first day of, does anybody know? First day of fall. Okay, so when I think of fall, I don't know, I think of football. So we are going to find out about making footballs because you always wanted to know, that's why. Michaela E. How long? 5 days. 5 days to make a football. I would have never guessed 5 days to make a factory football. Does anybody have football people in your house? Anybody? I know that during football season, like that's all that is on in my house, and nobody else besides the three of us have football on in their house during football season. Okay, well, you've got a fun fact to go share with your football people. That do you know how long it takes to make a football? Because I bet that nobody's going to guess. Brooklyn, will you turn the light back on for us? 5 days. 5 days. That seems like a long time for something that is mass produced. 5 days. Michaela Espino, not here. Okay, so Michaela and West. Okay. The and statements. Okay, so this one, the next one we're going to do is an and statement. It is the absolute value of x is less than and -4. These are a little bit different than the front side because on the front side we would have stopped because you couldn't solve it. For this one, we're going to go ahead and solve it. But when you split this one, it is a little different. Yes, we're going to split it, but it's different than what you think. So for this one, we will split it. So watch me split it. Okay. I am going to put the x in the middle, or whatever was in the inequality or the absolute value. I'm going to put it in the middle. So it's just an x. And then every time that you have the less than or equal to part, you're going to put those, it's the same symbol on both sides. Less than or equal, less than or equal. And then the two numbers that we're going to have on both sides is -4 and +4, right? Well, which one is smaller? -4. So we're going to put the -4. Actually, you have to make it look exactly the way that this one looks. So we're going to come over here and it comes down just like you see it. So -4. And then the other one has to be a +4. So we put it on this side. On the inside, there's nothing else with the x, so we don't have to get anything out of there. It's actually ready for us to graph. The two numbers that I see are 4 and -4. So I go put those on my graph, 4 and -4. These are shaded because there's something underneath the inequality symbol. The -4 will go on the left, -4 and +4. When I read this symbol, from the middle, it says reading towards the left. X is, it goes into the alligator's mouth. So X is bigger than 4. So I have to shade bigger than 4. And then reading to the right, X is, it goes to the small side. So X is less than -4. Does that make an and statement? Is it shaded and? Is it shaded together? No, it's not. So what happens when it doesn't work? No solution. So my solution set is empty. It also means no solution. You could also give yourself a little note. It's because it's not that kind of graph. It has to be, or it doesn't work. So it's no solution because it's not the and graph. So the interval, there isn't one. There's none. Doesn't exist. There isn't one. Are we good with that problem? The last one that we're going to do. This one, it's a less than and, okay. The absolute value is isolated. There's nothing else over here. So I can begin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write the stuff in the absolute value. I'm going to write that in the middle. So I have 4t minus 3. That goes in the middle. On either side, I get the symbol exactly the way I see it. Less than or equal, less than or equal. For this one, I have less than or equal to 7. So I need to make sure that I still have less than or equal to 7. So I need to write it on this side, less than or equal to 7. So if one side is 7, the other side has to be negative 7. To solve it, you solve it both at the same time. You have to solve it both the same time. So we've been seeing that when we solve these, it's the same steps every time. This one we had to divide by 4 both times. Well, we're going to be doing the same thing, but all on the same row. So it's a little different, but I think we'll be okay. The first thing I have to take care of is the minus 3. So I have to do minus 3 out both sides. I have to subtract 3 and subtract 3. So negative 7 minus 3, that gives me negative 10 over here. Seven minus 3, so I get 4 on this side. And now I have one last step. I need to divide by 4, divide by 4. So I have to divide by 4 both sides. Yes. Say that again. Yeah. Thank you for correcting me. Of course it's plus 3. It's minus 3, so we will add 3. Yes, of course it is. Clearly, I'm not awake yet. So let me fix it. That's why we do pencil. So yes, we will add 3. Negative 7, 6, 5, 4. So we get 4, negative 4 on this side. And 10 on this side. You'd think I'd catch myself. I literally have the notes written out right here. I should check myself. And then we need to divide by 4 out both sides. So divide by 4, divide by 4. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. Ew, 10 divided by 4. That doesn't go in there evenly, does it? No, it doesn't. But it's 2.5. I'm still going to write it as a fraction. 10 over 4 reduces to 5 over 2. But I know, and if I need to give it to myself off to the side, it is also 2.5. That might kind of help me when I go to graph it to know which one goes where. But the smaller number is going to go on the left. I'm going to have 2 things. I'm going to have a negative 1 and then a 5 over 2. My answers are always going to give it to you as a fraction. So if I was you, I would leave it as a fraction. And then I need to graph it with what the symbols say. So this one, it says t is greater than -1. So that means I would be graphing that way. Okay, so far so good. And that t is less than 5/2 or 2.5. Less than, all righty. Did that make me an and graph? Yes, I did. And the good thing about when you solve it like this is that it sets up your solution set perfectly. This is our solution set. So we're going to say, I'm going to say the solution set T such that, and then I'm going to write that inequality. T is greater than -1 and less than or equal to 5. Okay. I know that it's extra to write this little piece right here, but you'll see stuff like that on your quiz and stuff. So I want y'all to know what that part means. The interval for these are pretty easy. It's an and statement. That means you only have one of them. So we have -1 to 5/2, and they're both parentheses. No, they're not. Nobody even wanted to check me. These are solid circles. There's something underneath the inequality symbol. Solid circles. So they are not parentheses. Not parentheses. So many little things to remember. That's one of the reasons I want to make sure that you guys have plenty of time to get started on your assignment. You had a couple problems on the front. I don't even feel like that many. And then you have 4 problems on the back. We get out of here at 35. That means that you got 25 minutes to do 4 problems. That's plenty of time. So I'm going to say in 20 minutes, we will grade the homework. So you got 20 minutes to finish the homework and we're going to grade it. 20 minutes to finish the homework and we will grade it. So let me get a timer going.